And I think the more I think about it, maybe the best case scenario for the 49ers is for Trey Lance to start the season.
But I think Purdy's got more of a leash than Lance would have had than Lance was going to have last year because he's done more than Trey Lance has done to this point in his career. Now, Lance hasn't had the opportunity because of injury, which is unfortunate for him, but that doesn't matter.
But you know what,
Purdy went out there and played in the final, 8 games,
Yep.
And the 49ers were as efficient an offensive football team as they'd ever been under Kyle Shanahan. So that gives Brock Purdy a little more leeway than Trey Lance would have had as somebody that was coming in as essentially a complete unknown trying to figure it out as a young quarterback.
Well, yeah, and the more I think about it,
the whole season,
no,
but it gives him a longer leash than.
But I also think the leash, and this is where we might find out. We might not. It might not play out, but we may find out really what the truth is with Kyle Shanahan and how he evaluates the quarterbacks, because a starter's leash may only be as long as how bad the second string quarterback is. So, in other words, Kyle may be able to say, hey, I like our 3 quarterbacks, but if he feels like Brock Purdy is significantly better than Trey Lance still, and we'll leave Darnold out of the conversation, well, Purdy's going to have more leash. But if Trey Lance is pushing him, then maybe Kyle Shanahan would make a change kind of performance-based.
And look, let's say Brock Purdy's healthy and ready to go week 1, but Trey Lance is awesome in the preseason and awesome in training camp. That becomes a factor as well. Like at that point, the leash would probably be a little bit shorter. And the pressure would be coming from the media and coming from the fan base, because I do still think there's a belief, at least among the fans. I mean, I'm willing to let it play out either way, but I still think there's a belief that the best of Trey Lance is the best of the 3 quarterbacks. Like if Trey Lance reaches, I have to see it.
Oh, you're talking about it as just a belief that's out there.
The best of Trey Lance is better than everybody, right?
Gotcha.
Because of the arm strength and the athleticism and the skill set. Like if Trey hits that best he can be, then that's better than everybody else. Well,
I think that's why they drafted him for sure. The question is, have they changed their mind in 2 years?
But what I'm saying is, if he shows some of that in the preseason and Purdy is healthy, then I think it gets a little bit tighter as far as when maybe there would be a change or how much room Brock Purdy would have to struggle at that point.
Let me ask 49er fans this at 888-957-9570. And I'm not really talking necessarily injury. I don't want to talk injury because that's just bad karma. But what would be what's the best case scenario for the 49er quarterback situation from where they're at right now? And then what's the worst? And in a crazy kind of way, JD, to me at this point, the best case scenario, this is just best case scenario, it would be Purdy out the first month. And then Trey Lance, quarterbacks 4 games, and you say, this guy is going to be pretty good. This guy is pretty good.
And then what?
Well, then you're going to have a decision to make most likely, but then at least you do know you have one good maybe you have 2 good quarterbacks. And I know if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any.
Well, if they're both playing well, it's different.
Exactly. So to me, that would be the best case scenario. To me, Lance quarterback in 4 games and showing he can do it, or we do have something here.
Yeah,
is better than Purdy starting week 1. Starting the first 10 games of the season.
Yeah, the best case scenario for me is Purdy's healthy and Purdy looks pretty close to the guy that he was. December and January.
And then what do you do with Trey Lance?
If he plays well in training camp, he's your backup. If you feel like there's a trade market for him and you're comfortable with Darnold and Brandon Allen as the 2-3, then maybe you trade him. To me, all those things are on the table. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing that Brock Purdy is healthy, and it's an awesome thing if Brock Purdy's healthy and close to as good as he was at the end of last year. It's equally awesome if Trey Lance has a great camp and a great preseason, because then you've got a hell of a backup quarterback, or you've got somebody that another team potentially would want to give up some draft capital for, assuming that you believe that Darnold and Allen can fill the 2-3 spots, because filling the 2-3 spots is still important, because the 49ers have shown over and over again, bad luck or otherwise, that their quarterbacks are going to get freaking hurt. So I'm looking at it like you need 3. Now, maybe the 3 is Purdy, Lance, Darnold. Maybe the 3 is Purdy, Darnold, Allen, because Lance is so good you trade it. Like, I don't care who the 3 are necessarily. I would say it's probably Purdy, Lance, Darnold. But I don't even care who the 3 are. You got to have 3. Like, this is, like, I believe 100% when Kyle Shanahan's like, well, we'll go in and we'll just carry 3 on the roster. Hell yeah, you will.
Yeah, the idea of needing 3, I'm of the opinion that, of course, they used 3. They used 4 last year when Josh Johnson quarterbacked in the Eagles game. But I do believe it's like, man, if you get down to Darnold, where are you going? And I know Kyle Shanahan. Now this is where Guru would be like, you don't know this, and he's right. You can't win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold.
Probably not.
So once we get down to and I don't usually do this for any team, but that is what it's all about right now for the Niners, isn't it? If the Niners get to the NFC Championship game with Brock Purdy, he's healthy all year, and they get beat.
Well, who gives you the best chance to win the Super Bowl, right?
Brock Purdy right now with
now,
all the information that we know.
Exactly.
But that's based on information now, and that's based on an idea that Trey couldn't theoretically improve to a degree where he leapfrogs Brock Purdy. But
Trey have to be pretty damn good to be as good as Brock Purdy was in the last 8 games.
Well, that's true. That's true. But there's something about, I don't expect Purdy to, I think he's going to have more bumps in the road this year.
I would agree.
That's all I'm saying. More bumps in the road. And then, and at that time, see, that's where I think we're going to really find out about Shanahan. Because let's say, last couple of years, 49ers have not gotten off to great starts. Or 2 of the last 3, I forget.
No, but anyway, they haven't the last 2.
So let's say, if they start 2 and 4.
The last 3, actually.
2 and 4, and Purdy's got bumps in the road. I don't, this is where I kind of don't believe him. I don't think he's going to take Brock Purdy, unless Brock stinks. But you know what? Brock's not going to stink. Because,
you wouldn't think.
He's got enough experience. And he proved last year he's not a fluke. He may not be Tom Brady, but he's certainly an NFL quarterback.
I think if Brock Purdy played at a Jimmy Garoppolo level and they were winning, that would be good enough for him to keep the job.
Exactly. But I also think it would be, but this is a little bit where Kyle's stubbornness would come in too. If Kyle says Purdy's the number 1 quarterback, he is not going to want to put Trey Lance in there unless Purdy gets hurt. Like to me, he's more liable to stick with Purdy much longer, even if he's not playing well, because of the idea that Kyle said, if he's my number 1, damn it, he's going to play as a starter until he can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the perfect scenario, as I've said, is Purdy's healthy and he's ready to roll. The next best scenario would be Purdy's healthy, he's ready to roll. If something unfortunate happens and he gets hurt and has to miss time, not maybe a season, but let's say Purdy plays the first 6 games, looks pretty good. Niners are 5-1. He gets hurt. He's got to miss a month. Well, the next best situation is Trey Lance or Sam Darnold, whoever wins the 2 job.
Right.
Let's just say Trey Lance comes in and he's good enough to where they can go 4-1 in 5 games. Purdy's got to miss. And then you evaluate how does it look at that point and how to, if you need to. But it may just be Trey Lance wasn't as good as Purdy, but functional enough to win and keep the momentum of your season going, where your 5-1 turns into 9-2 or 10-3, and then you get your number 1 back, and you're back on to December and January. Like, that's, to me, a lot of this is about having all your bases covered if you're the 49ers, as opposed to figuring out how great Trey Lance can be. And like maybe you figure that out along the way, but that's not, like, the goal is be good enough to win a freaking Super Bowl. Like, this isn't about development. Like, this is about winning every freaking game you can every week and not having a quarterback injury derail the whole thing the way that a quarterback injury has derailed the whole thing every time the Niners haven't won, basically.
Right. So here's what I'll ask you. So you think a better scenario and obviously it's because if Purdy starts week 1, that's healthy. So you think Trey Lance can, like what I think, why I said my best case scenario would be Trey Lance quarterbacks the first 4 games and they go 3-1. The reason I'm saying that is because I think, well, if he quarterbacks 4 real NFL games and he looks pretty good, then theoretically they could move off him.
Sure.
You think the same thing can be accomplished before week 1 if he does well in the preseason and a camp?
The same thing being what?
Meaning he can grab other teams' attention by what he does in the preseason.
If he's really good in the preseason and has a good camp, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're saying, so what? You tell me if this is not what you're saying, but you're saying there's a benefit in Trey playing 4 games. Like,
okay,
but would you want to trade him then?
Well, I'll just ask you the question. Like, what
if he's your backup? Would you want to trade him then?
Well, it depends how good Darnold is.
If he has 4 good games, let's say at the beginning of the year, but Purdy's coming back week 5, and Lance has not been better than Purdy was in the 8 games last year at this point, but good enough to where you could win, and he shows some things. Well, at that point, are you wanting to trade Trey Lance just because you have? Like, to me, I wouldn't be wanting to trade Trey Lance at that point. I'd be like, he's a really good backup that's shown he's capable, and we may need him again at some point down the line. Like, that's kind of what I'm getting at as far as bases covered for this season. Like, I'm not getting caught up in, oh, well, he showed something, and now he's appealing to other teams, so now in October, we want to trade him because we got to get that draft capital back that we like. Forget that. Like, you want to have somebody capable to where if you need him again later, he can play for you. But that also stops short from, having him play so much that you know who he is for the rest of his career. Like, I don't really care about that as much either.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to find that out. We never find that out in 1 year.
But I would think that there's some out there that are like, well, hell, if Trey plays 4 good games, I want to see if he can play 10 good games.